it's not like the church's money is the money that clerics have.
Yeah.
It doesn't become the church's when you put it in the basket. It becomes the church's when a Christian owns it. And that all of our means of spending, all of our means of doing business is meant to be, in some sense, more or less, an exercise of the gospel.
It is. We here at St. Gertrude's, we are reminded every day, every week, of the incredible generosity of our people. Welcome back to Closing the Social Distance. As we mentioned before, we're getting ready for Mother's Day this coming Sunday, and we want to make another pitch to encourage as many people as possible to enroll their mothers, living or deceased, in our Mother's Day Novena. It's a beautiful gift to offer Mom and a beautiful way to bring her to the altar during this special day and the week ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, and it solves all of those problems of like what to get Mom and of being able to show that your concern for her is kind of at the deepest level.
Absolutely.
And, if you want to see the episode from a week ago, it's up there.
I don't see it.
You'll see it later.
It's somewhere.
It's somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the ether.
Or we talk about why a Mass intention is something that is, a wonderful experience of sharing, and the way that we bring people to the altar in the Mass intention. But there's sort of a second part to the Mass intention, because there's both what you all get from the Mass intention, being able to join in the prayers, being able to provide for the church and being a part of it. And then there's also the part that we get. One of the strange things that happens to us when we become religious is that we become dependent.
Yes.
Radically dependent. And this, as an American, this really hurts.
Yeah, we don't celebrate Dependence Day. It is a truth that goes all the way back to the founding of the order, but even more to the early Christian community. When you recognize that you don't have things because you earn them yourself, but they are gifts from God. It allows those of us who, by our vows, by our religious consecration, to live that universal truth out in a more powerful way, and to recognize, that God is very good to us, and because of that, we don't get to claim the satisfaction of private ownership. We are constantly reminded of the fact that it's our donors, it's our friends and benefactors, it's these people who help support us. That's what puts food on our plate. That's what enables us to preach. It's what makes it possible for us to live out this life of prayer and study. And so because of that, we're under a grave obligation and justice to pray for you all. And that's the other aspect that you're talking about of the Mass intention and of enrollment in novenas and things. It allows us to fulfill that deep duty of praying for the people and for special intentions like moms, And
it's a real union, I think, between us and benefactors, or benefactor, literally translation from like well makers.
Yeah. Do-gooders.
Do-gooders. Yeah. That it's not simply, it's not like, supporting us is not like supporting your plumber or somebody who does a service. It actually creates a certain permanent relationship, and the supporters of the order are a part of that Mass intention that we have every week.
Yes.
Which during ordinary times is more obviously we celebrate it as a Mass for the dead.
Yes.
That we have this permanent obligation, and that's because it's a relationship that is made because we are radically dependent on the church, our mode of living and our mode of ministering. I think some people might not necessarily realize it, but there's different entities on this campus. We have the Priory, where we all live and which is responsible for taking care of us and our sustenance. And then we have the parish, which is where we do all of our ministry out of. And both of those are dependent radically on you for their ability to continue.
Absolutely. I think that in a powerful way, all of the relationship of giving, of offertory, brings us back to the foundational recognition of what happens at the Mass. Like, there's a reason why there are traditionally Mass stipends, novenas, all these things. It's not payment for services rendered. It's rather a recognition of what the truth of what happens really is. You probably have heard me ramble on in a seemingly endless homily before about offering oneself at the offertory when the priest lifts up the paten and the chalice holding the bread and then the wine. We're meant to unite our whole selves to that offering, and not just ourselves as a kind of disembodied soul, but all that we have, all that we are, everything that God gave us, which in short is the whole enchilada. Taco Tuesday was 2 days ago, so we can talk about enchiladas now.
On Mole Day.
Precisely, Mole Day. I like that. We should write Hallmark and see if we could make that into a holiday as well. The power of making a true offering, the power of being sanctified, means that when you give to the church, not just as a kind of institution, but as a family of prayer, it is a powerful means by which not only is what you're giving sanctified, but all that God has given you is offered up to the Lord in these ways, and you recognize that dependence that you have on the Lord to sustain you, to help strengthen you in all the good and the bad, and to bring you into everlasting life, and it's something that we are also constantly reminded of.
Something I've thought about a bunch, because people will ask you, what is the right amount to give to support the church? And, they bring up the tithe, because a lot of evangelical churches talk about the tithe because that's what the Levites got to impose on the community, the 10%, is it Leviticus where the tithe is laid down? And the church actually doesn't say anything about a tithe. Instead, what the precept of the church says is that you have an obligation to support the church. And actually, that's in the part of canon law that refers to all of the Christian faithful. So it includes us. We have this obligation to support the church. And I think the reason why it's so nebulous is because it's not like the church's money is the money that clerics have.
Yeah.
It doesn't become the church's when you put it in the basket. It becomes the church's when a Christian owns it. And that all of our means of spending, all of our means of doing business is meant to be, in some sense, more or less, an exercise of the gospel.
It is. We here at St. Gertrude's, we are reminded every day, every week, of the incredible generosity of our people and what they have built here. This is our parish, not just ours as in yours or mine. It's ours, the sense of all of those who belong here to St. Gertrude. And that is something that, whether or not it's the sacrificial but consistent donation every week, from people who are struggling to make ends meet, to the incredible generosity and thankfulness to God shown by the parishioners who are able to help support big projects and help keep us afloat even during really tough times. We have ample reason to say thank you constantly. But it's not diminishing that to say that even more so we say thank you to God, as we hope you do as well, because that's in the end what we're meant to be pointed towards, to God, the giver of all good gifts. It's why we're meant to love rich and poor alike, why we're meant to be drawn into this relationship of total dependence, the way that Mary was, the way that the saints who draw closest to Christ are able to do, and so it might sound a bit high-flown when we're talking about simple things like a Mother's Day Novena, Mass intentions, or even just giving in the weekly offering, but it counts for a great deal because of what it means spiritually when we start seeing the truth of where the good things that we receive really come from.
Mm-hmm. And this is a reality that I think most people are participating in, because while the plague time has meant a bit more financial strain on us than usual, as one might expect, we're not suffering in the way that many parishes are, or many nonprofit entities are, and that's really because of how generous the whole community has been, and how much rallying there has been. And
you've stepped up in a big way, and you haven't just done it on one time, but you keep doing so, and that's what makes all the difference in the world. This is the long haul, as we all know, and so as we try to be prudent stewards with the help of our staff who have made cuts and sacrifices too, we are incredibly grateful for all that you all have done to help keep our ministry happening and to help keep this community, which is yours, alive and vibrant, even in these bizarre moments. Perhaps we could end with a kind of note of future programming. This coming Sunday, Father Alabaidi is going to be continuing his series. He's going to talk about the Gospel of St. Luke. And as we were recording that interview with Father Alabaidi, which is always a pleasure, I think, for us in a special way, I was struck by how glowing he was when he would talk about her and talk about the way in which she had this total relationship of trust.
There's only one name that he ever uses for the Blessed Virgin Mary. He always says the Mother of God.
Yes, absolutely. The Theotokos. This is a thoroughly traditional title. But I think that's the kind of image that it's very fitting for Mother's Day, that we hear about Luke's love for the Mother of God, that we see the great example that Christ's mother and ours, offer, the way in which all of the mothers in our parish, in our own lives, are women to whom we are meant to be permanently indebted in a way that we can never fully pay back. And in the end, this great gratitude of God, the giver of all good gifts, who draws us all together into that beautiful union of prayer. So, Amen. We'll keep praying for you. Please do say a prayer for us. You can continue to enroll your mothers, living and deceased, in the Mothers Day Novena, which will start off this coming Sunday with the Dominican Rite Mass, which will be live streamed, along with our earlier Mass at 9:30. And then the friars will be praying throughout the week consistently for the 9 days ahead for that Mothers Day Novena. You can click below in order to enroll your mothers. And you can also receive cards digitally or physically here in the church Monday through Friday between 12 and 4. Through it all, we're still missing you, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon on Closing the Social Distance.